Welcome back to my vegetable garden in the Yarra Valley. First tomatoes and first zucchinis have just started happening for me, so I'm pretty excited about that. So this is a November or end of November video that I'll be sharing with you. I am still pulling out winter veggies, would you believe? I'm clearing the beds as I pull them out and preparing them for the summer vegetables as they go in. And I have been putting them in, and today we're going to take a look at a lot of the tomatoes that I'm putting in and how I've prepared those beds. Yeah, join me today as we cram in as much as we can for the end of November before we shift into December. That has moved so fast. We've still had a lot of rain, so it's been tricky to get into the garden, but my husband's managed to get out there and finally mow because it was getting beyond us. And I enjoyed a visit to Hale Farm where I learned cheese making, which was really cool. I did that with my daughter. So it's great to get out and experience the homestead beyond your own and learn these things and add them to your toolbox. So the flowers are out and all the insects are coming out. You saw before, right at the beginning, the bees. Oh my goodness, I've got so many bees, which is wonderful. And we've got a little visitor here that's had a pretty hard time actually, because the birds have kept having a go at it, so it's likely not here anymore. But the cicadas, they're out. So I got to show my grandson a shell because they shed their skin much like a snake does. And so I collected them for his kinder, and he got to see the one that's alive. So it's been a time of pulling up flowers, collecting seeds, and preparing the gardens. So I got a fresh batch of pea straw this time because I've been using the sugarcane straw, and I have been putting that on the beds, pre-soaking it as much as I can. But we've had a lot of rain, so it hasn't really needed a lot of that. But in a barrow, I've been putting cow manure and soaking some so it's nice and soupy for the plants. So that's gone on the wire bed, and a few other places in pots I've topped up, and I'm going to be distributing that all around my garden. In bed number 2, I noticed early on some yellowing of some of the zucchini leaves. You can see it in this video, quite yellow. Now, according to my research, it is a magnesium deficiency, so I've since added some Epsom salts to the gardens in certain places. So I've particularly focused on tomatoes and chilies and eggplants, but I've added those. I had some cuttings from tomatoes on the kitchen bench that had been there for a little while, not a long while, and they rapidly grew roots, so I put some more of them out. Not that I need more tomatoes, but this particular one, which I couldn't remember what I put in, so I named it Can't Flip and Remember, I finally realised that was the cuttings I took off a 2-year-old tomato, a tomato that still is growing from last year, did not die off in the winter, and it's looking very healthy. So it'll be really cool to see if that grows. I took them out into the beautiful sunshine when I had it and potted them up. So this is a great way of multiplying your plants. It's particularly if you've not got a variety and say a friend's got a plant. If they will kindly give you a cutting, you can strike them in water very easily and grow them on to be little plants of their own. So it's a great way of doing that. Or if you've got one plant that you want to make more of, why not? That's how you do it. It's very, very easy. Now I just use some random soil that I had laying around. I'm kind of not got much at the moment for potting, so I grab some isn't great, but I will give it a worm tea top up probably the next day, because I've done this actually yesterday, so I'm going to do it today and go out and get some worm tea and give them a nice drink of that, and they should be fine. They're usually fine without any of that, but that store was a bit dodgy. That's those potted up. And I also had a spring onion that I don't have a lot of. Like, I've got a lot of spring onions in the garden, but I had this red variety and I had it in one spot. So I pulled one up to eat but cut the bottom off and left it in some water to sprout, and it started to grow again, and I'm potting that up as well. So great way of multiplying that. So that will go in next. So when that was done, I gave them a good water and left them on the potting bench to continue on, and then ventured out into the garden to do all sorts of random jobs. So basically, November, when it was raining, I prepared and harvested and did all of that, and I tried to plant and prepare beds when it was sunny. So lots of rain, not a lot of sun, but I took advantage of it when we had it. Okay, let's go in the Y bed and have a look what we've been doing in here, because I have been getting it ready for far more tomatoes. It's sunny. Now I've lost my hat, so if anyone sees in the video where I've put it, that would be great, or it could be in my car, but I've lost my hat. So I'm going to show you the tomatoes that are in this bed now. So I've got quite a few varieties here, and I'm putting them all in here, or most of the varieties in here, because they are protected from possums in this cage, which can be very hungry for tomatoes once they start happening. And also, because the beds are pretty much the same, although over behind me here, it's probably more manure just here because I put a heap of cow manure straight on the bed here. But basically all of the beds are very much the same soil, and I want to see how these different varieties of tomatoes behave. Now, some of the seeds, or a lot of the seeds, are heirloom seeds, and they are seeds that have been grown and climatised to this area because I've done a seed swap with someone I know. So they should be very receptive to growing here. I want to be able to see the different tomatoes, how they perform in these gardens, and taste them and see, you know, how prolific they are, how many they grow, etc., and decide from there next year my favourites and what I want to grow. Now I have a very rare one in here that you will, I will show you in a minute, and I have deliberately planted it in a particular spot because it grows up to 8 metres, can grow up to 8 metres. So that 8 metres is a bit to manage. You know, we talk about indeterminates are quite a bit to manage, as opposed to determinates that only grow so big. But this is a super indeterminate. I have put it in a place where I think I can manage 8 metres. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that. But otherwise I'm going to step you around. I won't show you the digging the holes, each one, you know how a hole's dug. I won't bore you with that, but I will show you the varieties and tell you what they are. And then I will flash back to them all planted for you quickly. And then we'll watch them, see how they grow in later videos and see how they perform. And then I will do a comparison for you. Once we get them all going, the end of the growing season, I'll also do a comparison and let you know my thoughts on those varieties and how well they do. Now I do have over here, I'll take you over, the camera follow me. Over here I have planted a bit earlier, so it's not a fair comparison to the rest of them that are in here. So this is the one caveat. These ones here, there's 3 here that are dwarf variety or semi-determinate varieties. So they only grow, as far as I know, to a couple of feet high. These are called principal Portuguese, and I may not be pronouncing that right, but that's what they are. And I'm trying these for the very first time. Now I am interested how the dwarf varieties go, and I am interested in trying some other varieties because they are really good for patios, small areas, and you don't have to like stake them, or you don't have to stake them as much. Like they're just easier maintenance wise, easier to cover and protect. You know, there's a lot of conveniences around the dwarf varieties. So I'm interested to see how they go because somebody has recently told me about them and said that that's all they grow now. So I'm very interested in that. But I'm also interested in the other one that grows the opposite and just goes very large and almost like a tree. Those two will be great comparisons. Great to see how they grow and what they taste like, because that is really, at the end of the day, we're growing food, aren't we? So it's about what ends up on our plate as well as what's easy to grow or what grows well. So let me walk you around now and I'll show you what I've got in here. The varieties, there are some extras out in the other areas, which I'll share with you another time. But basically there's quite a few in here. So let's have a look now. Placed them approximately where I'm going to plant them. They aren't hugely apart. Some of them are about 80 centimetres apart, and some of them aren't far apart at all, about 30. Now that's going to be interesting to see if they're too close, but that's what I'm doing. This one here and this one is from seeds I collected from a heirloom tomato up in New South Wales. So these are not localised seeds, but they have come from an heirloom tomato that looked very much like a Black Russian. So I actually don't know the variety, but they are very healthy plants. I really love the flavour of them. So I already know that I like the taste of those. So they're going in. Now over here, these are some of the swaps that I've swapped from local seed, and I think originally some of these seeds have come from that place that I'll put it up on the screen when I remember it. So that one there is Pink Bumblebee. This one here is Wild Sweetie. Now most of them are indeterminate, which means that they will need staking or support. So there's not many determinate varieties amongst my plants, and I'll put up on the screen if any of these are, but I'm pretty sure most of them are indeterminate. So that's a Santorini. There's one at the front. I might sneak up at the front of the bed. There's Black Crim. They're not going to be planted that close together. They're just there because I haven't labelled each pot. And if I start shifting the pots around before I stick a tag in there, I won't know what's what. And over here, we have got Yellow Fury. And I do have another unusual one across behind me we'll get to. Garden Delight, no, it's not this one. That's an unusual tomato behind me. So there they're already flowering. See here, they're already flowering. Very closely planted, about a foot apart, because they are small, so I cramp them in. Now see, some here aren't going in, so that Tigerella, that's more of the, that's Black Russian, that I know that it is a Black Russian, and there's more Santorinis, so I've already got that in there. Over here, which is already planted, is German Johnson, so they're the big, nice big meaty ones. Over in one of my other gardens too, I've got one called Meaty. Now, that is not tomatoes. They're my cantaloupes that I've just planted out. So they're going in the garden now. Now behind here, and it's more established than the others, nice thick stem on it. This is called the giant tree tomato. So it apparently grows much like a tree, like it gets quite thick in the stem, but can grow from 3 metres up to 8 metres. So let's see how we can grow it here. So I've got it here placed in the middle of the highest point of my cage. So over top is like a roof type cage, and the highest point, this is the centre. So the highest point is there. I will grow it up there, support it with string. I'm going to run a wire across the top, a bit lower than the roof, supported by that roof pole, and then I can go all the way along the roof. So this cage is about 6 metres long, so there's plenty of room for that tomato. So beside that, over here, this one and the one in the very back corner is a pineapple. So that's a big yellow tomato, and we move a bit along here where there's a bit more room for a tomato, and we have got I have trouble with names. Wassipinicon peach. Somebody type that out for me in a way that I can pronounce it. I would totally appreciate that. So that's that one. And on the other side of the cabbages, this one going in is Elfie. Have a feeling that's a small one. And that's it. That's all I've got for the moment. So I'll walk you over to the hothouse. Just to show you, it's starting to clear out as I'm moving everything into the beds now, which is nice. So I won't have to look after things so much as it starts to warm up. But we'll have a look in here and see if there's anything that isn't already in there. Okay, I don't think so actually. Oh, this one's a red cherry, and I've called it Mum's cherry because it's come from my mum's plants. So she grows pretty much just that at her place and always have so many cherries from it. So these are seeds collected from seeds, you know, like plants many generations on. So I know these grow pretty good. I have got cherry tomatoes in the garden in bed number 2, different colours, and I've planted them together so I can kind of pick them at the same time. because then I can have like all different colours that I'm picking together, and it looks nice, much like the punnets that you buy in the supermarket that are all different colours. So I've deliberately put them in the same spot, so I'm not going over here for the black ones, over there for the red ones, over there for yellow, orange and so forth. So I've tried to putting them in together. But the only other tomatoes that are in here are ones that I've already got ready to plant out in the garden I just showed you, or in other parts of the garden, and these are basically duplicates of the same. I'm trying to get at least one or two of each in the garden, so I've got all the varieties going, and if I lose one there's a backup. But this, I did have a few of these called meaty, because I've got a feeling they'll be a nice preserve tomato, and if they grow well and don't give just a couple of tomatoes on a plant, that would be really good. So over here another German Johnson, which is I've struggled to grow before. I think it's the same seed. It might be swap seed, I'm not sure. If it's swap seed, that might explain why it grew better this time. But otherwise it's the older seed that I've tried again and had more success this year with that seed. More Alfie here, and a black cherry, which is meant to be a very good grower. I think it's a late cherry variety, so it gives you the tomatoes a little later than the other cherries. But that's very happy, and I've already got one in the garden. Another pink bumblebee and yellow fury, which is in that garden bed. So there's not much in here. I do have some out near the potting area, and there's a couple here that I've just never got to plant out, and the poor things are just asking for life, but I don't know if I've got room for them. But while I'm in here, I will show you, this is my biggest tomato, and that one was the Costolotto Florentino. That is probably a metre tall now, and lots of flowers on it, so we'll have fruit off that fairly soon. Do need to stake that. It's sitting quite happily on its own, but once it gets fruit it's going to need some support. Now this is an indeterminate, so this is going to grow taller than this hothouse if I leave it in here, but because this hothouse is not so hot and if you've seen my video about what happened here and what we're doing with this, it's got an open roof, so I can put a stake in that pot and have it grow up out the roof if I choose to do so, which I probably will. So I'm just growing one in here to see how it goes. And the advantage of that open roof is less likely to have, the bugs issues, the bug issues. So this one here is a black cherry in a pot, and I pull it in and out here because when it rains we get this. It's sitting on the angle, but I'm pulling it in and out of there so it doesn't get too much water. I don't normally grow in pots. However, this year I have done that because I wanted to get lots of tomatoes in. So I'll show you over here. I'm even trying grow bags. So this will be interesting once we get into the hot weather, because they are inclined to dry out more. But being tomatoes, they don't need as much water as a lot of other plants, but I've got them in grow bags and they're going really well. I'll show you those now. So here they are, and again, these have flowers. So these are gearing up for fruit. These are also that semi-determinate or dwarf variety that I mentioned earlier. These were planted, I think they were planted around the time the ones went into the bed. They might have been earlier, not sure. I'm going to need to trim some of the bottom leaves off them. But they are very happy in those grow bags. I have planted some parsnip seeds in there as well, and I don't know if they're going to grow or not. I don't know if the seeds are viable. Parsnips can be a bit tricky, but you can see on all of these we've got lots of flowers happening. So I am very eager to see these fellas fruit. So they are almost the 2 foot height. When I look at them, they probably are actually. So it'll be interesting to see if they grow much bigger or not. They are definitely bushing out. They're definitely bushing out. You can see how they're thickened right up. They've got lots of leaves, lots of little side bits with flowers, and the suckers are all flowering quite profusely. Can't say it. The stems, off the stems, they're flowering really well. So there you go. They're the ones in the grow bags. And then last night I put one little thing in here. This is a shaded area, but in the summer it'll be more protected. So this one here is from a neighbour's tomato. So I have no idea what variety it is, but I think it's Black Russian or something similar, because that's what it looked and tasted like. It's a baby that just went in there last night. So that's one in there. This is actually going to end up a wall of cucuzza, and I've got some sweet potatoes growing here. So there's a wire wall we've put in here on our veranda, and so that will be quite shaded, a shady area, but I have not found that to be a problem with tomatoes. So on the potting bench, there's still some tomatoes left. We've got some Costolotto Florentino. Now, can you see the difference in size of this one to the one I showed you before in the hothouse? This got up potted into a big pot, went into the hothouse, and that is probably the same seeds. So that's the difference. I've got one ready to go because it was put in a bigger pot in there. But these being left in smaller spaces are tiny. The quicker you up pot them, the quicker they grow. So some sun golds here, and I'll show you one that I up potted, and now I've just put it out into a pot again last night, into a bigger pot ready to grow up. So that's that big. There's some over there. These aren't getting much sun here, so I'll have to shift them, but they're even bigger. And I took one from there last night, and let's walk up here. And it's in here. I've taken all the bottom leaves off yesterday, but that's about 30 centimetres tall. So it's nearly double the size of the other one. I've had a blackbird in here this morning already. And over here in a pot, and this is from the same lot of seeds that are in those other grow bags that were put out earlier. But you can see the difference in this. So this would be half the size of the others. So I'll stand beside my pineapple guava. Check that out. How pretty is that? The parrots were checking it out 5 seconds earlier up the top. They nip them off and drop them down on the ground. They love the nectar of the flowers, very sweet. Trial and test in your yard, in your soil, different times, because in Melbourne, most people are just starting to sow seeds or buying the seedlings from the shops and putting them out in their gardens now for fear of the frosts. Now, some areas in Victoria are more prone to get really severe frosts than others. I'm in an area that's safer, but I still get them. I still got them, but I had my plants in the ground months ago. The ones that are in those grow bags that I showed you before, they have some shelter. So I'll give you a bit of a broad look. See, they have some shelter, but they're pretty much in the open. They're exposed to the weather, and they are more than happy. And if I hadn't planted them out then, I wouldn't have those right now. So I'm glad that I staggered the planting like that, started early, because these obviously will finish before others are started. Having some on the potting bench that are in smaller, once they go into the ground or into a big pot, they will take off. They will still be behind the others that are already in the ground and more advanced, but that's a way I can succession plant and have tomatoes staggered, because I do want to do some preserves, but we do like to have fresh tomatoes as much as possible. And it's one of my husband's favourite things, the fresh tomatoes. He's very sad when tomato season finishes. But we do have some in the cupboard after that you know, I preserve, and not with sugars and salts and that. I actually pressure can some, so you got pure just tomatoes to put in things. We end up with fresh tomatoes hopefully for a longer time. So I think I'm safe now with the frosts. I think I can relax and go, well, not that I was worried, because, you know, I plant more seeds than I need, and that way if I lose some, I've got more. And look, you can always go to the hardware, but it's not going to be, they're not going to be as healthy at plants for your garden as the ones that you grow yourself from your own seed or from local seed. So yes, so that's what I've done. I'm so far pretty confident about my tomato season. Very happy that I made the choices I did, and very happy I took the risks and that I trial and test things, because and I don't say it to brag, I just say it as an example to you to have courage to try these things. Plant more seeds, throw some into the garden. Some won't do as well. I can actually show you some that didn't do as well because they got overcrowded. So I put some little ones, same plant actually, I think, these, in another area, and they got sheltered out, and it's not as good as soil. But I think it was mainly because they got sheltered out and they're little tiny things still. Plant here, there, grow bags, try all the things for your tomatoes, if you love your tomatoes, and see what works well. And it might change with different seasons, but see what works well, and then you will know better even for the next year. So yeah, here's to a good tomato season. But before we go, I have to show you my poppies. I have grown poppies for the very first time this year. Got them in 2 places, and this was an area I didn't think they were going to grow in. But have a look, and they've just started flowering. They are amazing. Look, 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 look. Look. Look how big they are. So I've got a pink one and a red one, at least that I know of. This one's totally opened up. That's almost like a dinner plate size. Look at this, how big it is. So I'm going to mark them so I know which colours are which and collect seeds for them. But this area for a very long time, and in the winter months, is just, there's no sun here. So I threw in some mixed flowers in here. Not much grew other than the poppies, although you can see that some of these have taken off. The violets have grown in there, but I don't think much else grew. But these have grown really large though. So they have really liked being in here. There was chicken manure in here a long time ago that would have well and truly rotted down. So that has probably helped them, but they're pretty big. So I'm really pleased with that. Look how many flowers I'm going to get. So I just had to show you that before we went. But thanks for joining us, and I will see you next time.